good morning. This is Kelly Springer with Dragon Elder Song. How are you all?
Hi, and this is Barbara Worsley, the East Coast Dragon Lady. And it's afternoon because we're on each coast, right? So you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. So it's good morning, good afternoon,
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever
good
you
wherever you are in the world, right? Yeah, wherever you are in the world. Yeah,
world. Thank you, thank you. Oh, wow. So we were just sitting here talking about what we were going to talk about. And oh my gosh, so much has happened since our last
yeah,
show. The
yeah,
end of
which was
the year,
end of December, right? December time. Yeah,
what an amazing shift it was. Coming out of December was like a grand slam shed you off, ma'am. So many people, including myself, went through a downward dog. We went down and had to surrender. It was a real powerful time of reflection. For some people, it was processing through emotional stuff that needed attention. For some of us, it was reviewing and looking at your life. For some of us, it was thinking about where you need to be and what you needed to refocus on or shift direction. So
mhm.
I feel like that energy was so orchestrated by the Divine Mother to have everyone come into this year with greater clarity. Very,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And same similar happened to me, except for as I said to you, the beginning of January, it felt more like it came in slowly and it sort of built up to like that big alignment of all the planets. And it was like it for me, normally, like the last few years, I've like literally been catapulted into the next year. But this was like, oh, this is nice. This is slow. This is and then it was like, oh yeah, just wait. And it was like building up, building up, building up. And then it was like all those planets lined up. And it was like, whoa, what happened?
I know I was thinking about those new planets that are, the new planetary alignment that we've just entered into, and the fact that it's going to be with us for more than 30 years. And I thought, wow, it's like we all just climbed into a new suitcase that we're traveling in. It's going to be, we're going to be wrapped around in that suitcase, if you will, or maybe we should call it something greater, like a robe. We are in the robe of the seven planets right now. I like that better. So in this
Yeah.
robe
Yeah.
planet racing us, and it also the rainbows, thinking about all the rainbows. I put my new rainbow necklace on. This is my Peruvian cross, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's the time of rainbows right now. So many of us are working with rainbow elementals, rainbow dragons have been coming in, including lots of galactic rainbow dragons, and then also some of the Earth rainbow dragons. And the rainbow dragons have been reflecting into a lot of people's higher frequency celestial dragons. So it's
Mhm.
been really interesting. That time of the rainbow was coming in really strong all this last year, especially in the last months
Yeah.
of it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Would you remember that it was the end of last year was when I saw that collective coming and they were all the colors of the rainbow and they were the ones that drove that got me to channel them to produce my oracle deck.
oh, I remember that.
Yes.
That
They,
and it definitely was partnered with, what we were kind of breaking through, getting aligned with all of the rays and
yes.
plugging us into them more. So all of us
Mhm.
plugged in to all of these rays, and that also was priming us for this expansion and this next expansion. So we're going to keep getting waves that then prime us for the next one and prime us for the next one. And so it was really interesting when we entered into this year. There were a couple of things that were really coming up. One was this incredible connection to the white phoenix, and I felt so drawn to it that I actually changed my whole logo and the image of my business over to the white phoenix and the tree of life, because that's in the seven chakras. in particular as symbols, because this time right now is about alignment with a greater consciousness that's plugged into the rays, all of them. And then this white phoenix is about shedding. And so this also being the year of the snake, and I believe it's the year of the wood snake. Um,
Would say.
think about trees. What is shedding off of trees? And think
Mhm.
about trees, not just in the physical sense of trees, but this tree. We are all of us the living tree of life connected to source. So when
Right.
you think about your own self in that place, you mentioned something too, and I'll let you speak to this. I want you to talk about this from that place of the tree in within and how important it is to ground. Would you share something about that? Because you just had an
Yes.
experience. I think it's
Yes, I did. So, most people, if they followed me at any point, I always talk about how important it is to ground ourselves. And I think so. When I eventually started to connect with the dragons, and especially the galactic dragons, I'd ask them, how come it's so easy for me to connect with you? And they said, oh, that's because you've been, over the years, you've been grounding yourself and you're firmly rooted, so
Mhm.
you've put your roots down, you're firmly rooted. Therefore, the deeper you go, the higher you can reach. And I was like, oh, didn't think about that. So I've always told people that if you're not grounded, it's harder for you to experience these things. But the experience I had just recently was connecting with the core of the earth. Um, and I used the term that when I actually when my roots hit the core of the earth, I called it locked and loaded. It was like I hit that core and it locked in. And then all this beautiful energy just comes up and like fills you up. And then it goes out into your quantum field. And this is all sort of new to me. But then I said, wow, I thought for years I'd been grounding myself and it was only superficial, right? Because you really got to get down into Mother Earth and connect to the core, and then you're really firmly in. And I think then that allows us, and like we were talking about earlier, we were trying to catch up, that a lot more galactic information is coming in for me now. Now that I've made that deeper dive, I'm finding it easier and a lot more stuff is coming in.
What a blessing. That is so cool. And I love hearing you share about that. One of the things that we got to learn in the temple work, the temple journey work that I teach,
Yeah.
was that there are aspects of Gaia, and that like ourselves, we have our inner child and our higher consciousness, we have our adult self, we have our higher bodies, all of these multidimensional aspects of us. To think about the earth having that. And when you think about the earth hearts, there's three different earth hearts that we're working with right now with Gaia and her aspects. They're all
Mhm.
Gaia, but they're Gaia's aspects that when you tap into them, they touch you into different layers of consciousness and information. So
Yeah.
that layer you were just speaking of is the white diamond heart, the inner earth. And that is the most core, highest place to tap into with Gaia. It is the true root. And you could think of it like the mother milk line, the actual white lines of Gaia,
Yeah.
pure spiritual energy. So tapping into that is a wonderful practice. And there's a meditation that I'm going to be teaching to people. I'm going to be putting something up on my website soon about this. There's a practice that you can learn to do that's really simple. And maybe that's something we could do together. We could teach a class
Mhm.
about this. So it'd be really fun for you to come and maybe do this practice with us and teach you how
Yeah.
to play with it, because there's information you get that gives
Yeah.
you information about different levels of consciousness. So when you're plugging into those aspects of Gaia, you are actually plugging into, what am I supposed to be doing on the earth? Okay, what am I supposed to be paying attention to in my inner process? Okay, what am I supposed to be paying attention to galactically? Oh, what am I supposed to be paying attention to in my next step of higher growth? All of those layers actually come into play with those different aspects of grounding
Yeah.
and various hearts of Gaia. And it's amazing what happens when you practice it.
Right.
So
Yeah, so I've actually been doing a 28-day challenge,
Oh,
which was how I got drawn to it. Somebody who I know said, "I think this might interest you," and any of you that know, I like when something is what I'm supposed to do, I don't question it, and I'm like, "That sounds really cool." Because so the reason I chose to do this 20, I'm on day 20, so we do 5 days a week. We get the weekend off, and it's about 30 minutes in the morning, but it's at a specific time. And for me, I'm like, first of all, I was like, I don't want to do that. But it's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's right in the middle of me, like trying to get ready. And I'm like, no, this will be my 30 minutes to do something consistently and let me see what happens.
mm,
And the first couple of times I did it, I just was like blown away by the intensity of that energy. And this person, it's called deep coherence technique, but
mm.
it's literally bringing up that energy and out. And like we live in that. And it's all that stuff that we know, but it's just like doing it consistently. And I don't think I've done anything consistently for 28 days. So that was my challenge for myself, was to do it at whatever. Like I have to make that time. So I have to get up a bit earlier so that like right on 7 when she does it, you know, I'm there. Because if I leave it like, oh, I'll do it afterwards, then, and I'm like, no, I have to do this because I want to see what happens when you do something consistently for 28 days. And it's amazing because, as I told you, it's like you said, it's allowed me to, like, what is next? What is next? Oh, this is where I'm going. It's allowed the messages to come in much clearer because it's that frequency that we're playing with, right? So we're in the frequency.
Getting
Yeah,
clarity and the direction coming through in that purity of awareness and understanding and connection.
yeah,
It's so comforting and it's such a relief when that happens because you just feel
right.
like landing into the ah, into the
and
ah.
and it sort of sets you, it just makes like your mind is so clear because we all get into what am I doing today, blah, 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 right? It just brings you like right in, and it's, you know the whole thing is probably 11 minutes, just the technique, and you can do it anytime once you know how to do it quickly. So it's just like calming yourself down or grounding yourself, right? Which is what I've done before, which was, all right, I need to be, as I said, I'm a Pisces. So I tend to like float up there and I can be all like etheric, but I need to be grounded because you can't do anything unless you're on the ground.
You got to remember where you be. And I think
Right,
having bodies and remembering when we're doing expanded work, it's one of the greater challenges a lot of people have when they don't have foundation. So to me, it's foundational. What you're speaking is
yeah,
foundation. You want to have a real solid grounded foundation in order to be able to land what you are getting messages about, because
right,
that's when you can take action and have it be beneficial and have it be of use to you in this daily kind of existence.
right,
And
yeah,
there is a huge amount of change that's needing to happen in our world. So the
right,
opportunities are endless for purposefulness. You know,
right,
it's just this endless sea of things that need to be addressed in our world.
yeah,
So there's so much opportunity for us to be taking actions in positive ways that affect our lives and affect our communities and better ourselves. So I'm excited about what's coming for us energetically and with our bodies and with this new plugged
yeah,
in, because I'm really excited to see what we are going to start to do with it because it's
right,
creation.
right,
Our
yeah,
new,
yeah,
our
yeah,
new
but
new earth heart, the blue diamond heart, that heart is at play in our field. And that's a big part of what all of this expanded new grounding energy in is about, is being able to put stuff together into the new creation wave and make something new happen. And there's opportunities to start building things. Last night I was at a gathering with friends here And we were talking about how our community doesn't have a respite support center. And they were like asking me, what is that? What's a respite support center? And I said, well, when children are at a breaking point where they're losing it by being around their parents, they need a break. And when adults are at a breaking point and they're going like pulling out their hair and they just need a timeout, they need a place to go rest. So a respite center is a place where children and adults can take a timeout, and the community supports it, and they can come. Minors can come and stay overnight and be kept safe and watched over and have a place to sleep and be fed and just take a time out from family dynamics that are just overwhelming them. And when children start to break, they start to break out or act out or do things, it's like out of control. They need a place to be able to be held, and sometimes they need to be away from their family who's overly triggering them and sending them over an edge. So
Mhm.
we oftentimes don't have the greatest skills in our family communication to address all the issues that are coming up. So having proper support in the community. Well, while I was talking to this single mom who's been struggling and just like tired and going through single momhood, I looked at her and I realized, oh my gosh, did you know there's a grandmother organization in our community? Well, she didn't even know that a grandmother organization exists in our valley that
Right.
is to do that, to help single moms and to help new moms to be able to, deal with being new moms and have a grandmother we call it grandmother on the go or something like that. But the grandmothers can be called in and they volunteer to come and be like a
Mhm.
would-be
I
grandma.
wish I had that. I could have done with that when I had my kids. I had nobody, right? And it was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So isn't that interesting? So that's something like, as an example, ways in which we can start to invent and create new ways of doing things for each other. Like a
right,
restaurant center is a different concept. It's
right.
a concept than just a
Well,
shelter someplace.
yeah, I also think that people like, so, depending on generation, they're like, suck it up. You've just had a baby. I had 10. Like, why you
Well,
only have one, right? And I think there's a lot of people don't understand that, right? So in my case, when I'd adopted, and then the miracle happened and I got pregnant, so my family, my ex-husband's family and my family both said, well, you don't need us because you've waited all these years. This was their mentality. You've waited all these years to have these babies. Now you've got them, good luck. And I'm like, but I'm still human. I need a break. And they would be like, yeah, you'll be fine. And I'm like, it's just because I didn't have one physically doesn't mean I don't need a break because, I got a baby weeks old. It was like, I mean, other than I wasn't physically tired, a few weeks of not sleeping.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine doing that without help. You're a champion. I
Oh,
mean,
I didn't have any, again, there was no choice. So
you didn't have a choice.
I
But
had no choice, right?
the,
Which seems that's been the theme of my life, though. Whenever something comes up and people say, "How do you do it?" I say, "I didn't have a choice. It was me or nobody," right? So,
Well, and that's a big part of the dynamic of our culture that is broken. And what I
yeah,
mean broken is we've lost our tribal connection to each other.
yes,
And
yeah,
a part of what I think New Earth is about is us regrowing new tribal conscious practices and new conscious tribal relationships that allow us to have greater support with each other, to be able to show up as a tribe to say, I'm here for you. I've got you. I'm right here. And what do you need? And how can I
yeah,
be you?
yeah,
And that all sounds good. And a lot of people get busy in their daily lives, but in collectives, we're actually able to do that more with each other
yeah,
than if it was just one-on-one with a friend. So
right.
I've been studying and learning the dynamics of what new tribal consciousness is and how we're going to be playing with it in my life. And I've been looking at communities and people I'm involved with here. And I'm actually
Yeah,
dancing and playing in those circles, like with how that's going to start to become something that I want to work on here in our community together with groups of people. And
Yeah.
looking at building, a dream I have is to begin to build a new tribal village, to actually draw attention to a model village of what new tribal living could look like and how it plays out. And it's not living on top of each other. It's different than conscious communities, what a lot of them have done. It has that this is it's different. That's all I can say. So
Yeah.
there's new ways of doing things that we're going to be inventing. And I'm very like hopeful at what the future is going to bring. And this year of shedding is very interesting because
Right.
Phoenix and the snake are both really powerful symbols for release and let go and transcendence.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been hearing from people lately is like all of a sudden I had to clean out my closet. Oh, all of a sudden I was giving away a bunch of clothes. I'm feeling like I
Mm.
need to and so people are physically shedding belongings.
Yeah.
And today, it's like the way the shedding is showing up. It's both internal processing, letting go within, and then also external. And I think that's something we're going to all be like getting our house, our environment in order, getting
Hmm.
ourselves simplified. And when you're not managing a lot of clutter, you have actually more time to focus on other things. And I
Yeah.
think about freeing us up to focus on those other creative
Yeah.
endeavors together. So
Yeah.
all being we're all being sussed out, to kind of get ready to dance together, huh? What do you think?
And yeah, and I think as well, it's and I said as well, I feel like the Kundalini energy is going to be released, whether we want, whether we've got to be ready. It's not like it's not going to be a choice. So there's going to be a lot of people are suddenly going to be waking up, and there's going to be all of this stuff coming up and out.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people already, I'm included, I've been feeling it physically in my body, and it sort of seems like every year, the more I expand and become connected, the more deeply I feel things like the Schumann resonance and, all of those things. And this particular alignment, a few days beforehand, I mean, my physical body was getting rid of, like, just literally purging. And I'm like, what is going on? There was nothing, it was, and then I'm like, did I get a bug? What is it? And then I realized, no, it was just my body. So physically, I was feeling it in my physical body because it needed to come out.
Yeah, it's good.
So I think
We're definitely with the new waves of energy. That's part of it. I'm experiencing that too, like going through physical metamorphosis,
this,
going
right, yeah,
through physical changes in our body. And I actually think that's higher frequency medicine. The medicine
yeah,
frequency coming in is shifting us on a cellular level as
yeah,
well physical, psychological, mental, spiritual, all levels of mind, body, spirit are being invested into this new wave of energy. So it's absolutely whole body, whole being.
whole body, yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah,
Good thing to
yeah,
mention. I agree. I couldn't agree more that the alignment, like I said, the tree of life that plugged in, rooted in the seeds. And I put a seed on my design because we're grounding into the seed, which is this the potential of what could be coming, what could be out there that we are, wanting to invent from. And the idea of infinite potential. I studied that for a while and I was like, one of the things that statistically we know for humans is that we have an unlimited potential as human beings. It's one of the most infinitely open aspects of ourselves as human beings that we have to work with in life is our potential. And so
mhm,
huge vault of infinite opportunities. Like I said earlier, this opportunity for us to do things together and change things is
yeah,
now. And
yeah,
there's many of us here. And what's
right,
is on the mind, on the small level of working with small groups of people, all the way up to this expanded whole, internet where we can connect to everyone. We have such a volume of potential, even in our reaching in to do stuff with our local community and expanding it out, and even flowering like a thought or an idea of like a respite center that could flower into a lot of communities. We could spread the seed of that and it could blossom in other gardens. So the earth is
Right.
this gardening project that we're growing and blooming.
It does, yeah. But
This-
I think the other thing that has come up, especially beginning of this year, has been peace.
yeah,
And and like so many people have been getting the same
yeah,
message, might be slightly differently, but I was literally woken up to one of the messages. And what happens to me sometimes, and I've shared this before, is like I'll be doing one thing and then they'll say, "Oh, we need you over here." So I'm supposed to be doing this, but then I got taken, and I was very aware that I was on a huge ship. I actually talked about this a bit. And I realized there was a lot of people on the ship. I could only see myself, but I wasn't alone. And out of the window, I could see other ships. And I asked telepathically, "Why are there other ships following us?" And I was told, "Well, because you're important, and that's the Federation is escorting you, and you're on a peace mission." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that means." And they were like, "Oh, you'll figure it out." And more and more things. I mean, you just said, "Oh, peace, yes." And then somebody else who I didn't know said, "Oh, I saw you on that ship. I'm on the same mission." I know it's to an undisclosed location, but I think I've been told that I will be able to remote view it. But I think I've already seen it. Do you remember once I told you I saw that I'd been invited to this huge arena? It was like a huge football field, steep, almost like the Roman, whatever
so
they used to call it,
balconies going up, up, up.
balconies. Yes, up, up, up. And
Yeah.
I'd come in and what I saw was not everybody was human. There
Mhm.
was different, but it was filled. It was huge. I mean, it was like a football field and just very, very steep. And I'm like, "Oh, I've seen that, but now I know." And I think it's a parallel life. I think it's a life that I'm living somewhere else right now. That's why I keep flip flopping back into it.
A higher actual dimensional body that is
Yeah,
actually in real time there.
yeah,
So when you are operating from your higher body, you're seeing from the
yes,
where you're at in the body.
yeah,
So it's called bilocating and
yes, by, yeah,
location awareness when you're seeing from your high body. And yes, that place you're describing, I've been there. And it's amazing the energy and light there. And the balconies go up like forever into
oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
like sky and or a ceiling with no ceiling, a building with no ceiling kind of
Oh,
thing.
yes. It's almost like open air. Yeah,
And one of the things that I know happens there is the Divine Mother, Sophia, shows up. When she comes to speak to us from there, she will become like she goes into a fractal communication, which a lot of people shamanically practice this. When you're talking to a large group of people, you can go into being connected to each person, and your spirit will go and directly give messages to each soul. So we go into that's why the balconies go way up. It's not so important that we see the stage.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Energy comes to us in person. So the
yeah,
beast steps out onto the stage to talk to all of us, comes in like this
mm,
huge light, and then the next thing you know, she's in front of you talking to you.
yeah,
So we're having a one-on-one conversation in those conferences, and those events are really powerful. And I had a very similar experience in my 30s, just like that. I woke up on board a ship. The next thing I was in a balcony standing next to an ET, and I was like, "What are we doing here?" And he goes, "We came to see her." And he waved his hand, and it was the Divine Mother. And she stepped out in this bright light and then gave us messages. And I
yeah,
still remember the messages she gave me that day. She
yeah,
was clear. She said, humans need each other in order to collect the pearls of wisdom that reflect to them their gifts. We pick up information from each other, and with that information, we take that information in and we find out something about our purpose by what we collect. And she said, you should collect the things that you notice, like I notice children a lot, or I notice art, or I notice certain types of maybe I'm interested in medicine and I want to be studying plants or some knowledge. So the things that draw you in that you collect are keyed into something about you, but nobody around you knows what you're collecting but you. So she said, you need each other and you don't. So you need each other to collect those pearls, and then you need to cipher your pearls every now and then, look at them and look at them all together, and they tell you something. So she was talking about how to understand your purpose in the most gentle way. It was so sweet. And I think that's a wonderful thing to think about, that you can understand your purpose by just thinking about and noticing what you pay attention and what no- you notice and
Yeah.
what has meaning for you. But I want to get back to something that I think is really important that you spoke about peace. I think this time the armadas are coming together, and I
Mm.
was calling to them recently, and I shared this with you. I got a real hit after being at the river, and one of my students pulling up a beautiful medicine rock, and it was a incredible red jasper heart. And we went into prayer for peace with it and took it to the ocean, did ceremony. And I know that we are at a time when we need to all be praying in us in a stronghold kind of way, meaning the more of us that come together and pray for peace and link, the stronger the stronghold of light keeping peace will be. A time of a lot of volatile change. So everyone hear me. This is a time when we're shutting big shadowy stuff out of our world, when people can act in ways that can get destructive. We need to be really careful right now. So we wrap gold and light and the divine mother father energy around this moment because we want to hold this in a container and ask to not create it. So as we talk about things that we don't want to manifest, we wrap it in pink and gold, the mother of love, the father of wisdom, and we ask to hold peace in our world. We know that people are still actively dealing with a lot of challenges around getting along with each other in our world. We have actively several wars that are still going on, and we actively are trying to create peace. We're at a edge for ending the battle in Israel and with the Gaza Strip and Hamas and getting all of that to quell. And
Mm.
inshallah, divine love, wisdom, please come in and help all souls find their way to finding peaceful ways to agree, to work out our differences. Wanting to hold a greater peace in the world is not, it's not just about them and us, it's about our hearts. And one of the things that I know is that when we all come into holding greater peace within ourselves, and we plug into our elder prayers and unite them, it creates a collective stronghold for greater peace. So I always invite people and want to invite all of us, including me and you, together, because we can do this with each other, sisters, to unite our prayers with each other when we say them for peace. I unite my prayers with Barbara, and so that I'm creating a stronghold with you in the peace work. And I feel like that is something very simple, but that we can do to strengthen our intention,
Yeah.
never ever letting the unthinkable happen on earth again. We all know what that was. And the use of those kinds of weapons is really antiquated in terms of where our light and consciousness is going. Going into higher dimensions of light is all about unifying and greater peace and love and cooperation. That is completely the opposite of something that is anti-life and not doing that. Mass destructive weapons are anti-life and they are
Right.
not helpful. And we need
Well,
to,
it's fear, right? It's fear is what is being put out to stop us all from doing that.
it's also not just fear, it's also greed and avarice. There's three things. The fear is definitely part of it. You're right. But there's also greed and avarice. And greed is just all about money grubbing and making money and profit off of war. And we know that the profitable business that has lined a lot of pockets. There's also avarice, and avarice is just hate. Hate feeds into the shadows, the dark side, the Watiko. I wrote an article recently. You might have seen it on my page if you've been to my Facebook page about polarization. And the way in which we polarize is another place of, learning how to find your way to peace. And there was something I observed. I recently moved back to community and my family. I had lived on the West Coast for 30 years, and I moved back to live near family in the central part of the country in Colorado for a time. And while I was there, I was observing relatives who are on both sides of blue and red politically, Democrats and Republicans in my family. And I was listening to them talk about each other, and I was reflecting off of what they were saying, and I was observing that the language they were using was identical. The things they felt angry and hatred was pouring out of them when they would talk about those darn da-da-da, and those darn da-da-da. And I was listening to them say the same exact words and the same exact accusations. And I'm like, this feels like something from the dark side has planted into our world and it's feeding off of all that avarice. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what is happening in our
Yeah.
world. We choose to not
Mhm.
practice hatred and hold on to hateful thinking regardless. So it shifts it and you stop feeding whatever that is. You can call it the devil, you can call it evil, you can call it whatever you want, but it's anti-life and it's feeding on the things that it can feed on. It's very opportunistic. And I also believe it's not part of nature. I believe that we shadow and light, which is yin yang, right? But when we're feeding into the aspect of something that is anti-life, it does not give. It has no give.
Mhm.
Shadow is give and take, but shadow and light is give and take in its nature. But the idea of something that just takes and never gives back is total dark side. And that is, I think, a big part of what we are addressing in a universal sense, the big cleanup project of this universe it's taking.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to talk about that, but I do believe that this is a big part of peace. We have to
Mhm.
understand we have to learn how to not feed that. And learning how to do that is reminding ourselves when we go into avarice feelings to pay attention. Like, what am I feeding? What is my hate feeding? And
Yeah.
there's a place to do positive work with anger and your feelings. It's not about walking around putting on plastic masks and pretending to feel okay. It's not about spiritual bypassing your emotions or your feelings, but it is learning how to deal with them in ways that can help us to not feed the demon. We don't need to be feeding demons, not our
Yeah. We don't.
anybody
Yeah.
else. So
Def- Yeah. Yeah.
it's an interesting process to go into with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be hearing more about what people are doing for themselves this year because it is, like you said, about community, about what do we need to do so that we can be helpful. Because if we're living in fear or we're living, in all of that stuff, then we're not going to be helpful. So we need to, and I think I'm among lots of people that do not watch the news, don't. I try because it's going to come to us. I mean, if I need to know about it, I realized this year that I didn't even know when snow was going to happen. And I was like oh, it's snowing, and I have to go and ask, like, oh, was it going to snow? I haven't even watched that because I just don't. I don't need that information because it then sets you up in a fearful, like,
Yeah.
for the day, right? Because I was, the person that would put it on while I was getting ready for work, and I could feel my blood pressure going up. I'm like, oh. So last year I chose. I know last year I chose. I'm just not going to watch it, and I've not missed it at all. And it's a surprise when the weather's like, oh, the snow. Oh, okay. Um,
A lot of
yeah,
people tune out the news because it's full of downers and the
yeah,
energy sucks, it takes you down.
it
A
does. Yeah,
lot of us, I think you're right. I think about spiritual food for our consciousness. What you feed yourself is what you experience. So if you're feeding yourself on a lot of downer energy, you just start feeling sunk. So a lot of people tune out of the things that don't help lift them. And I think that's instinctive, especially now. Instinctively, we want to be fed something that lifts. And so, I think about like, well, then focus on what it is that does lift you. And what you
right.
people doing things to better themselves and work on themselves. That's what most of us are turning to. We turn to things that help us to improve who we are. And the self-help arena, the ability to do integration and focus on your own grounding, your own alignment, your own physical health, all of that really mind, body, spiritual alignment is where it's at because it's helping us to rise into this greater potential. So
Yeah,
I think uniting our prayers, holding a peaceful intention for doing inner peaceful work within. I've never forgotten, and none of us do, Gandhi's statement, it's ringing in our ears all the time. If you want to change the world, change yourself. So we do know that when we work on ourselves, we better everyone and everything around
yeah.
us. So
Right. And it's not selfish. I think people, we still live in a time, especially for women, that we think if we're doing anything for ourselves, that it's selfish because our default is do it for everybody else before you. And I spend a lot of time saying this to people because I've learned the hard way, right? I learned that I was doing that. And now it's like, no, I have to find time for myself. Like I was saying earlier, even if I give myself 30 minutes in the morning before my day starts, I've given myself 30 minutes, right? Which is a start.
mhm,
Whereas, I could find a million excuses not to do that. And it's like, no, everything can stop for 30 minutes. Nothing's going to happen in 30 minutes. So
yeah,
I do think that's important that
mhm,
we understand that. And it's a bit like, the analogy of being on a plane and it's crashing and the air things come down, the mass come down. You have to put it on you first before you can help anybody else. And we should think about that, about we need to do that for ourselves so that we can help other people.
that's
And every little bit that we heal heals other people.
yeah. It's really a law in the universe. I will heal myself first and then others. And
Yeah,
yeah, to sit on airplanes. It's like it's definitely part practical law that actually
right,
works for us as a rule. And
right.
it's around being a parent. When you're parenting, it's really important to take care
Oh,
of you, to be a better
it
parent
is.
and to be a
Yeah,
better with people that you love, to be a better friend, ally, even in the community, whether you have children or not. I think
yeah,
it's incredible truth what you just spoke. And absolutely everyone be practicing
yeah,
that. And I
yeah.
agree with you so much. It's really important right now. And it's never not important. That one is one of those timeless.
It is.
It
Right.
always
It is. Yeah. And when I speak it, I have to remember to take my own advice because I'm really good at giving other people advice.
us humans, we're so good at, in our current evolution as human beings, I just like to say it that way. In our current evolution right now, we are good at two things, forgetting. That's one.
And yeah. And,
And we're
and like I'll give out advice and then I'm like, wait a minute, I think I need that.
we need to do it ourselves. So the other thing is that we are trying to be independent all the time. But one of the things that you spoke of earlier too that I wanted to say about self-service and self-care. I like to think about this because for me, I had to learn the difference between selfless service and deselfing. There's giving and sharing for the sake of others. When you're full and you have plenty to give,
Mhm.
that's selfless service. You're sharing the well of love inside of you. But when you are not full and you're sharing from a half full cup. And
Right.
it is very different. And when you're sharing to avoid whatever's in here, then
Yeah.
you're deselfing. And deselfing is something people who have been oftentimes traumatized or hurt and have patterns that are buried get caught up in doing and don't even realize it. Like, they're really good at jobs. They're really good at doing all kinds of projects. They like give, 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 and they're just spun out into everything. But if you ask them what they do to take care of themselves, they
Yeah.
can't they can't speak anything. It's like
Right.
myself, I've her, you know. So you're
Yeah.
right. Having to learn to like give to you is so
Yeah.
important. I had to learn that lesson too. And I think I've
Right.
again and again.
Yeah.
I
Oh, I still haven't quite got it, but I'm getting better at it.
like to say I'm still working on that. It's
I'm
like
still, yeah, still a work in progress, right? I'm still a work in
all of it
progress.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yes,
So,
I know. I know. So I think, this is, fabulous. I think we need to like pin some of this stuff and talk about it again next month because I know that I still have stuff to do today. Yeah, we're doing fine. It's like we tried to find a time. Literally, Kelly and I have tried to do this over like 2 weeks. We've
it
been
was
trying to find a date that worked, and then I was sick, and then you were, and then that didn't work. So I'm like fitting this in. I know it's beginning your day, it's getting to the afternoon in my day,
well,
but I do think that and there's other people I know that we can bring in on these conversations.
yes,
Um, yeah,
absolutely. Thank you
yeah,
so much. It was a great talk with you today, Barbara. And
yes, yes, and you as well.
we
Yeah,
want to invite all of you to be a stronghold with us for peace. Invite all
yeah,
of you to join us in that. Yes.
yes, and yeah, join us in that piece and taking care of yourself,
And take
right?
good,
Because take care of yourself first,
reach out
and
for
then you
when you
help.
need.
Yes, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. A
All right.
wonderful month, you all. And we'll be
Yes, yes,
in February, which is in a
yeah.
few.
It's actually a short month as well. It's only 28 days, isn't it? Isn't that? Or is it?
Amazing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Until next time.